blue, there's blue.
Good morning. Is the sound system on though? On, but just we probably need to turn the master volume up. I'll just keep speaking so we know if it starts to turn up. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Let's see. Oh, God. Oh, yeah. I forgot. He had told us that. Good. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Someday I'll figure this out. There's an upper knob and a lower knob. So I'm curious if he had the lower knob. Yeah, we'll try to avoid that.
He did say that he informed Jake. So.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We're just trying to build up the suspense so everybody can get excited. Good morning. Good morning. According to that clock, we're early. That clock's like a couple minutes slow now, evidently. Need to fix that. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good. There we go. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us. This is the June 15th City of Findlay City Planning Commission meeting. I am going to go ahead and I'm sure Matt can manage roll call. So go ahead and do roll call.
Mayor Buren?
Here.
Rob Martin?
Here.
Jackie Schroeder. I apologize. Dan Klinger.
Here.
We've only known each other for, 15 years?
Well, good morning. All right. If anyone planning to speak for or against an item could please stand up and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Okay. Do you affirm that all the testimony and evidence you're about to give in a case before this commission this day will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and will conform to the facts of the case and the rules of this commission? This you affirm under the pains and penalties of perjury. Please say I do.
You may be seated. Thank you.
Real quick, Mayor, we do have a change to the agenda.
Okay.
So if anyone was wishing to speak on this item for or against, I just want to let you know that it will be tabled today. This is item ZA04-2023 filed by Shane Kelly to rezone 609 West Folk from R3 residential to C1 local commercial. There was a sickness in the family and he could not be in attendance, and he requested that it be tabled until July.
Okay. So I will motion to table item 7 on our agenda, application for zoning amendment ZA-04-2022-3, filed by Shane Kelly to rezone 609 West Folk from R3 small lot residential to C1 local commercial.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mayor Mira,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mr. Klinger.
Aye.
This item is tabled. All right, so we're going to jump back up. Approval of the May 11th, 2023 meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, is there a motion to approve as circulated?
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of approving the May 11th meeting minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Item number 1, under new items, application for zoning amendment ZA-03-2023 filed by Greater Findlay Properties LLC to rezone 219 Hurd Avenue from I-1 light industrial to R3 small lot residential. CPC staff comments.
So this request is located on the east side of Hurd Avenue, north of the intersection with West Front Street. It's zoned I-1 light industrial. It's in a neighborhood that's zoned R3 small lot residential. The City of Findlay land use plan designates the area as small lot residential. This site has been a single family home for a while, and the applicant would like to rezone the property to R3 small lot residential. This would allow them to add an addition to the house. As it is zoned industrial, the updates would not work within the I-1 district. During the 2020 zoning map update, HRPC recommended this parcel be rezoned to match its use. However, the previous owner declined the rezone at the time. So staff is supportive of this rezone request. Staff recommendation, staff recommends that Findlay City Planning Commission recommend approval of application for zoning amendment ZA-03-2023 filed by Greater Findlay Properties LLC to rezone 219 Hurd Avenue from I-1 light industrial to R3 small lot residential.
Engineering.
No comment.
There is no comment filed from fire prevention. Therefore, the recommendation from staff before the committee is to recommend approval of the application for zoning amendment ZA-03-2023 filed by Greater Findlay Properties LLC to rezone 219 Hurd Avenue from I-1 light industrial to R3 small lot residential. Is the applicant here to speak on this item? If you could please just come forward and introduce yourself real quick. Thank you. Is there anything beyond what was described that you wanted to share with the commission?
Nope, all we're doing is we're taking the roof line from a flat roof to a gable roof is all we're doing.
Very good. From my perspective, I think this is an improvement. It's, decreasing the intensity of the use. Obviously, we had previously recommended this, so I'm glad to see it coming forward. So I would be supportive of the change. Other comments from the
Are
commission?
you the owner of the building?
Yes, sir.
You didn't state your name and address, so you might do that for record.
Okay, Timothy Sigworth, and I live at 3889 State Route 63 in Macomb, Ohio.
Okay. How long have you owned the building?
Just a little more than a year. I bought it from a gentleman who passed away.
Okay, has it been vacant since then?
Yes, it has.
The red button.
Yes, sir.
You say you want to add an addition, or you're doing a roof project on it?
We're taking the wall up a little bit because it had a flat roof on the back side of the house, and it was flat, so we're just going to take it to a gable so it's better for rain, so it don't cause any leaks.
Okay, what are your plans for the rest of the site?
I'm going to turn it into a rental home after we get it taken care of.
Okay, are you taking down the storage building? Are you reciting? What are you doing to the project?
We're residing the house and redoing the inside.
Is the exterior is in pretty bad condition? Is it salvageable?
It is. It's got T111 siding that the gentleman put on it. I don't think he ever painted it, and it just looks like crap. We've got vinyl siding already and stuff bought for it too. We're going to take some of that siding down and then take it back to the original Dutch lap. And if we have to, put some insulation foam board behind it and then put new vinyl siding on to make it look more appealing.
Okay, have you done other rentals?
Yes, sir.
You got rentals in town or?
Many, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm in favor of this changing to R3.
Okay.
The only thing is I want to be careful that we don't end up with a debacle like we do on West Sandusky Street. You're limited if you're doing an addition to 50% of the lot coverage for one. So I don't, as I read it here, you were planning on making an addition to it or not?
No.
No addition at all?
No. There's a room underneath this flat roof. We're just going to raise the knee walls to match the roof line that's on there on the upstairs.
Okay. Matt, as I looked at the downtown design review regulations this morning quickly, this is in that area. Would I see this as coming before the design review committee? Because I didn't see anything that separated commercial versus residential.
Now, in the downtown design review code, it specifically exempts single-family, duplex, and triplex from the purview of the downtown design review board.
Okay.
So that's only focused on commercial or buildings or apartments with 4 units or more.
Okay. I didn't pick that up in that in that policy. Okay. I guess I don't have any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think this brings it into alignment with the rest of the neighborhood, and
Right.
I'd move to approve the rezoning.
And I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Was there anyone else here that wanted to speak for or against this item? All right, hearing no further discussion. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mr. Klinger,
Aye.
and Mayor Marin.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quick, Tim. So this is a recommendation that goes to the Findlay City Council Planning and Zoning Committee at noon. So this will go there. Same, is it in this room? Yep, it'll be here at noon. So you're free to leave if you choose.
Moving on to item number 2, application for conditional use CU-09-2023 filed by Josh Elkert to reestablish a drive-through for a new Heavenly Pizza at 1135 Fostoria Avenue. CPC staff comments.
This request is bounded on the north by Fostoria Avenue and on the south by Tiffin Avenue. It is zoned C2 General Commercial. It's surrounded by C2 General Commercial. It is not located within the 100-year floodplain, and the City of Findlay Land Use Plan designates the parcel as regional commercial. The site has operated several restaurants over the years. Most recently, it was Cedar Valley, who actually they did utilize the drive-through during COVID. The applicant, Mr. Elkert, operates Heavenly Pizza, and he plans to move into the location, but has requested to reestablish the drive-through. The drive-through was a feature for the previous restaurants, such as Long John Silver's, that were located on the site. The applicant submitted a sketch that shows that they could handle the required 8 cars of stacking. And with this being a less intense drive-through than like a traditional fast food restaurant, staff was supportive of re-establishing the drive-through conditional use. CPC staff recommends approval of the application for conditional use CU-09-2023 filed by Josh Elkert to reestablish a drive-through for a new Heavenly Pizza at 1135 Fostoria Avenue.
Engineering?
No comment.
There's no comment from fire prevention, so the recommendation before the committee is recommending approval for application for conditional use CU-09-2023 filed by Josh Elkert to reestablish a drive-through for a new Heavenly Pizza at 1135 Fostoria Avenue. see, Josh, I think I saw you. There you go. Would you mind coming forward, just introducing yourself real quick, and if there's anything else you'd like to add beyond what was shared?
Good morning. My name is Josh Elkert with Heavenly Pizza. The only thing in addition to what was stated is just so there's an understanding of the use of it, it's not going to be where you can order and come in and pick it up, or even order at a box and then pick it up. It's going to be things that are already made and ready to go. So you're going to come to the window, order a slice of pizza that's already there, and we'll serve it to you. So we don't want anything that backs up around the building and backs up onto Tiffin Avenue like we've seen at some of the other places on Trenton and on Tiffin Avenue. And we're also going to put some signage that you can only turn right. When you exit out of there, there's that, you can kind of see the off-ramp exit there right onto Tiffin Avenue. That'll be a right turn only. We'll put some signage there because we don't want anyone trying to turn left, because that would, I mean, I don't know why you would, but people still try, so.
We've seen stranger things on Tiffin Avenue. So it doesn't really matter. I'm just curious. So are you relocating your location entirely, or is this a second
We
establishment?
are relocating entirely.
Okay. Perfect. Now, I think this makes sense. It was built for this. It's not going to be over intense for the site, and I'm really glad to hear about the right turn only. That is typically my largest concern with establishments going out onto Tiffin Avenue, is trying to limit that 4-lane, crossing. So overall, I'm supportive of the application.
I assume you plan to remove the menu board that's there so that people don't think that there's an opportunity there?
Correct.
Now, will you take any app orders, or is it strictly you drive up, you tell the tenant what you want? And
Yep, everything will be serviced right at the window, so there won't be, that box is going to go away. We are going to put some signage that we don't have developed yet, what that's going to exactly look like, but there will be some signage there so people understand what the drive-thru is going to be used for. And we'll do some, social media and stuff so people are aware.
Okay. And Matt, for clarification, I think when it's a pickup window only, I think it's a 5-car stack versus 8.
That is correct.
Okay. Are you planning on, I assume, doing fix up to the outside of the building, the parking lot and all that? What's your intention?
Yeah, we are, so we do have someone that's going to be painting the outside, and we are having the parking lot resealed with new lines and handicap stuff, and there'll be some directional arrows painted on the concrete so people know where they should be coming in and going out.
Okay, good.
Josh, what kind of signage are we looking at?
We are getting rid of the big tall sign. We actually got that a variance on the zoning for a monument sign
Okay,
last week.
great.
So we're getting rid of the big one and putting in a monument sign.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak for or against this item? Okay. And
Matt-
if you sit over here, you always have to stand up because I can't see you. So if you raise your hand and then you get offended that I don't see you, that's on you because I can't see you.
Matt, on the monument signs, if you could help me on that a little bit, which is what we're trying to ultimately go to. How do we determine whether it's setting out too far for visibility on the traffic or so forth? Is there a specific setback?
There is a setback from the front property line. And then we also have kind of corner vision clearance calculations that we look at.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with the exact variance, but I'm guessing it was how close you are to the front property line.
The code said 10 feet, and we applied for the variance for 5 feet, and they gave it to us for 5 feet from the
Because
property
in
line.
this case, they have no place, they have no place to get 10 feet
Right.
back and put the monument sign in.
And you've got a fair amount of setback from the street as it is to the property line. This is going to come up in the one on Trenton Avenue, which I'll have a couple of comments on maybe, but, okay.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? All right. I will motion to approve application for conditional use CU-09-2023 filed by Josh Elkert to reestablish a drive-through for a new Heavenly Pizza at 1135 Foster Avenue.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mr. Klinger,
Aye.
Mayor Marion,
Aye.
and Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Good, thank you.
Item number 3, application for site plan review SP-13-2023 filed by Diverse Development LLC for a let's see if I can say words, for 2 new tenant spaces at 1107 West Trenton Avenue. CPC staff comments.
And just a quick clarification, we had discussion with Dan, and he told us that one of the tenant spaces will actually be removed from the plans today. So that westernmost, I believe it's tenant C on your drawing, that will be removed.
So to clarify that, will it become one space or is that going to be,
So instead of being 3 tenant spaces, it'll just be 2?
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
Currently, there's the Chipotle, and then there's a new tenant one in the middle space, and then there'll be a smaller addition that we're looking for approval for right now.
Here, I'll just. Okay.
It actually makes the site a lot cleaner, but I'll let planning go through their comments,
Yeah,
and we'll discuss it.
I'll run through these quickly. So CPC staff, this request is located at the southeast corner of Trenton Avenue at the intersection with Independence Square. Zone C2 general commercial, and the entire surrounding area is also zone C2. It is not located within a 100-year floodplain. Parcel history, the site has 2 existing tenant spaces, one of them being Chipotle. Previously, the site was Max and Irma's restaurant. The applicant would like to add an additional tenant space to the existing commercial building. The tenant space would measure, it's still the same, it would be 21 by 75 feet in size. The additional storefronts will be added, or additional storefront would be added to the west side of the existing building. Previously, one of the tenant spaces was going to cut into the drive aisle. However, with the reduction in the tenant space, it should not impact that. Originally, staff had noted that there was a pickup lane noted in the elevation. However, after discussion with Dan, he did say that there was no pickup window, so that concern has been addressed. Parking on site currently has more than enough to accommodate the entire building as a whole. They did not show any additional landscaping in the area. Staff would recommend some additional shrubs be added either in the northwest corner of the site or along that west grass strip to help beautify the site. The building renderings show a use of vertical articulation to help break up the bulk of the tenant spaces. Staff would just remind the applicant that any equipment mounted on the roof must be screened from ground level view. EPC staff recommends approval of the application for site plan SP-13-2023 filed by Diverse Development LLC for a new tenant space at 1107 West Trenton Avenue with the following condition: work with HRPC to finalize additional landscaping on the west side of the site.
Engineering.
So really, from my side, I mean, the site really isn't changing too much. It's just really a building expansion. So there will be additional taps on there. I'm assuming instead of 3, you're only going to have 2 taps now for that. So, I mean, we'll just have to change that accordingly before you guys have construction. Just get your tap permits. But really, detention, all that, all the stormwater was addressed beforehand because of the existing site. So I recommend approval.
Thank you. The only comment from fire prevention was to be sure to, get all proper permits before construction. So the recommendation before the commission is staff recommends approval of application for site plan review SP-13-2023 filed by Diverse Development LLC for a new 2-tenant space at 1107 West Trenton Avenue with the following condition: work with regional planning to finalize additional landscaping on the west side. Dan, anything you wanted to add beyond what has been stated?
First and foremost, I'd like to apologize about the submitting with the 2 buildings and coming in with the 1. There was a legal thing found through title work that Walmart has a no-build area, and unfortunately that second unit got in that no-build area, and working with Walmart is almost like working with a railroad. So it's darn near impossible to do it. So what they've done is they've cut it down to one, and based on the exhibit that I provided you guys, none of this parking is getting reconfigured. There's still going to be two-way traffic, and essentially the building itself is going to go right about approximately where the existing patio is right now. So there'll still be some green space in between the new building and the existing parking lot. So that'll give us some area to either add patio, fencing, or additional landscaping. We can work with the administration on that.
Are they planning for restaurant-type tenants in these two, or?
This one, yes. This one, I don't know, have they submitted any type of plans, Eric? Okay. So this middle piece is not a restaurant.
Okay.
The one to the west will be a restaurant. Again, no pickup windows, no drive-throughs, nothing of that nature.
Okay, question for Jeremy. You said that you requested 2 taps now. Well, wouldn't the original Max Nerman's already have a tap?
Yeah, so that one, I think they're renewing because they would have had I think there was all the way to the east, you would have had one.
Yeah.
I think that's original, but since they're separating this out into separate tenants, they're going to have separate meters and separate taps for each one of those. So originally with the 3 builds now, I guess the 2 news and then where that center was, that would have been where those 3 taps are coming in, so now it would only be 2. But there was one for the original building, but since they're separating out, they're just getting multiple meters through there.
Okay.
What we had to do, Dan, is when Chipotle came in, they redid a new water service and essentially abandoned the existing one that went to Max and Irma's, because the existing kitchen it kind of encompassed both tenants. So all of that was redone. Now with this tenant and this tenant, they're going to have to redo the services and the sewer.
Okay.
So that's where we're working with the city on tap permits and stuff like that, because we're establishing a new service for each unit.
Okay. Also, as a bit of a clarification, since we've got a new plan, do we need to revise this recommendation from regional planning that it's a 1 unit and so forth, or do we just add a notation to it?
I would, in a motion, just make note that it's just for 1 unit. We will work through with Dan Stone to get the proper drawings, and we'll stamp those.
Okay.
Dan talked with us about this. We were fine with this late change because it went from less intense.
Mm-hmm.
If they were adding another at the last second, that would have been an issue. But this is going less intense.
Right. Okay.
Was there anyone that wanted to speak for or against this item? Okay. Yeah, overall, I think it, fits within the existing footprint very well. The flow works well. I like the green space and the patio space. I think that will improve the site aesthetics. So I think as long as we work with regional planning to add some additional greenery, I think this plan makes sense. Other
I'll make
questions?
the motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor, whenever Jacob, I guess, is ready. I don't need to read the motion again.
Okay. Mr. Klinger,
Aye.
Mayor Murin,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
and Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right. Item number 4, application for site plan review SP-14-2023 filed by Croy's TC and Son for new office building on parcel 570010222369 on Fostoria Avenue. CPC staff comments.
The request is located on the north side of Fostoria Avenue between the Wells Fargo and the Millstream Credit Union. The site is zoned O1 Office Institution. Along Fostoria Avenue, it is also zoned O1 Office Institution. The neighborhood to the south is zoned R1 Large Lot Residential. It is not located within the 100-year floodplain, and the City of Findlay Land Use Plan designates the parcel as regional commercial. Currently, this site is vacant. Croy's Landscaping, or Croy's TC and Son, is proposing a new 3,972 square foot office building for the business. The business would have an office space in the front with an area in the back that could store landscaping equipment. The building and parking are located entirely on the east side of the site, which would allow for future development of the site on the west side of the site. The one access into the site is located in the middle of the north end of the site, which connects into the shared access for the larger site as a whole. The parking would be in front of the proposed new building and can accommodate 13 parking spots, one being handicapped accessible. For foundation plantings, they showed that there was only 24 shrubs rather than the required 46. Staff would recommend the applicant work with HRPC to finalize a landscaping plan. So staff recommendations, TPC staff recommends approval of application for site plan review SP-14-2023 filed by Croy's TC and Son for a new office building on parcel 570001022369 on Fostoria Avenue with the following condition: work with HRPC to finalize a landscaping plan.
Engineering.
So for the access for the site, you can see that there was an existing drive that was coming off State Route 12 right there. Working with Dan Stone, we were able to eliminate that drive and actually use that access easement that is on the, I guess, the north side of this property. So appreciate the Corys and Dan working with us on that. Eliminating drive, that will actually set us up for the future for the west side of this property as well. So good with all that kind of stuff. Really, the water service and sanitary service is nothing out ordinary, so just get your tap permits for that. Stormwater for this, we'll be utilizing the regional detention pond for the area and also incorporating some more impervious areas, so have no concern. So I recommend approval.
Only note from fire prevention was to be sure to obtain all appropriate permits prior to construction. So the recommendation before the commission is staff recommends approval of application for site plan review SP-14-2023 filed by Croy's TC and Son for a new office building on parcel 570001022369 on Fostoria Avenue with the condition of working with HRPC to finalize the landscaping plan. Discussion.
One point of clarification, this is not a landscape company, so there will not be any type of landscaping mowers or anything like that inside the building. It's just more of a open area for trucks and maybe a mower or something for the current properties that they currently own.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I like the idea that we're minimizing the curb cuts off of Fostoria and utilizing existing. When you come back and enter on the north side, are we gonna, because that's open, basically parking lot, are we gonna establish a roadway?
As of right now, we are establishing a grass buffer to separate the mass sea of asphalt.
Yeah.
So again, we will define an actual access in here with that landscape buffer to, again, define a parking lot, to help define that driveway similar to what the bank did. And you can see they started to add a couple islands in there. So again, as this development goes, this access driveway will be more defined, again, as the parcels go along.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Dan, did you say this is not a landscape business? It's not a mowing business? It's a...
Correct.
Is it a rental business?
They can speak more for what they do, but yes, they did own the mobile home parks. They do have all the rentals and stuff, and they're moving their office over here, so they can, again, they'll have an office set up for people to come in, pay the rent, do the, typical office things. And like I said, the back half will just be more for, their maintenance trucks to pull in and out, to keep it outside. The intent is not to have any outside storage, or anything of that nature. So again, it's just for their company use for maintenance and things of that nature.
Okay. Now, behind the bank here, they've started what is a repaved access drive. Have there been any discussions with the property owners whether they'll continue that along so that you can define that there's an actual drive behind the buildings?
That was the intent. I know I work personally with when they were trying to get some fencing and stuff up there. And as I stated earlier, it's kind of a phasing thing. They were working up in there, so they created those islands, and I'm assuming planning as well as planning commission, as anything else would happen on the lot that we don't own, they would go ahead and create additional islands to create that, again, to create that drive aisle. Again, we're setting up our side similar to what the bank did, but again, we can't control property that we don't own.
Right.
But I do know that, again, all of this has gone through planning commission, numerous times over the years, and every time they do something new, they've been making them introduce those islands to, again, help define that driveway, as well as set up true parking aisles. So, but again, as anything would develop up there, I'm assuming planning would make that happen at that point.
Okay. Could we also get them to do a little bit of planting in these grass strips, maybe some trees or something that would help to define that? If it's just a grass strip, that's easy enough to kind of miss-see and drive across or whatever. So if there was something vertical in those areas, I think that would be appropriate too.
Maybe
Again,
that's something that we could, work with the planners on, and, maybe reposition some trees and stuff like that to, we don't want to go overkill with landscaping.
Right.
But, we definitely want to make sure that it's aesthetic, but also we want to be cautious of the cost of
Okay.
landscaping as well.
Now I see you're putting in a new sidewalk along here.
Correct.
As I noticed down in here, this is very deep.
Yep.
Is there something that can be done to that to kind of elevate that so you don't have
That's
to?
why the sidewalk does, it does snake through there.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't want to mess with the existing roadside drainage. We looked at it briefly. If I raise it, it's going to have a negative impact further west you go. So we wanted to maintain that existing drainage swale. We pushed the sidewalk further north. We have a gentle slope from the edge of the sidewalk going down into that. So that was the best fit solution for that.
Okay.
And the good thing is there's ample room in there, so the sidewalk is still going to stay within the public right of way. They're nice, smooth, gentle curves, so if somebody is riding a bicycle, they'll go through there. They don't have real sharp turns, so we looked at that as well to make them as pedestrian friendly as possible.
Okay.
And Dan, since that's a state route too, there are standards with ODOT with runoff slopes, what those can be, how far they can be, the percentage of those can be. So we didn't really want to disturb that. It's a well-established drainage swale, so just having that little bump, I noticed that too, but moving that would be kind of cumbersome, getting in with ODOT and all that kind of stuff as well.
Okay. Just one other thing, you submitted here some elevations of the project, and my personal comment is if they would widen the entry vestibule area a little bit, it would give a little nicer proportion to the building. So if you could pass that along to them, then maybe that could take place.
So I feel like I'm getting to be the nice happy one today. So that's a nice change. I think that this is a great improvement to this lot. I think it's a good intensity, and I like how it's creating a bit of separation between the asphalt, sea that's to the west of it or to the north of it. So I think that this is a good improvement without being super intense. I know the Croy family, and I think that they, do a nice job upkeeping their facilities. And so I think this would be a nice improvement to the area. And I very much appreciate eliminating the access and having that access on that backside. I think that makes a lot of sense and positions it well for setup for future development. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone into that.
One other comment, Dan, where you come in between the islands to enter this property now, that's not new paving there, and that's in pretty bad shape. If you wanted to paint in arrows and out arrows or something like that, would they consider repaving that over to the?
I would say
opening?
once they get into construction, most likely, a lot of that area may get damaged a little bit more, and they'll probably take care of that at that time. But again, it'll be more of a during construction adjustment.
Okay.
Was there anyone else here that wanted to speak for or against this item? If you could come forward and introduce yourself, please.
I'm Ray Van Gutten. I'm a property owner of 1610 Fostoria Avenue, right next door. Would you say this property was zoned, or that whole complex in there?
Office.
Was it office?
The old RCA building, that's C2 commercial. And then the 3 lots are zoned off.
Okay. Well, I built the, it was originally A.G. Edwards. It's now the hospital, Blanchard Valley Hospital is in there. I built that in 2006 with the understanding that the office buildings were going to be built along there. And, I've been waiting since 2006, so it's nice to have the buildings. My contention is the road behind there where everything exit off of, nothing's ever been done to that. It's a wicked drive back there. And now that there's a warehouse in the back of the old RCA building, they come down that road there, the semi-trailers. And I mean, all day long now. And I feel that it's kind of devalued my property on the corner there because all those semi-trailers coming in and out of there. I really like the idea of an office building, more office buildings going in there.
Is this the road you're concerned with?
Yep.
Or this one here?
This one. And the one that runs all the way across the back. I mean, no.
Behind the bank and stuff? Is that what you're?
Yeah, the road, there's supposed to be a road there. I mean, when I bought it from Rudolph Levy, they had designs to, do that whole back road, and nothing's ever been done. In fact, I've had to maintain that entrance in there myself until recently when the bank went in there. Now they plow that. I used to have to plow that all the time, and it's not even my property, but I couldn't get in. My clients couldn't get into the building. So my concern is not that the office building's going in there, it's that traffic pattern around there.
So completely understand. I know that was kind of one of the things Dan brought up was the condition of that roadway. The tricky part, if I am correct, Matt, Jacob, is that's actually not a platted roadway, right? It's a easement within the parcels that you all have a joint access agreement to. With that, what I would recommend is kind of getting all of the property owners together and probably having a meeting to kind of work out making improvements to that roadway, because that's not city right of way that we can mandate the condition of it.
Yeah. My concern is with more going in there, there's more traffic going out that way there, which, eventually that road's going to deteriorate, especially with the semi-trailer traffic going through there right now.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Real quick, the easements, they're civil agreements. I would get a copy of it. You never know what's written in those. Sometimes they limit semi-truck traffic. There could be anything written in that agreement.
Where would I find those?
Generally, it's recorded at the recorder's office in the county courthouse. If you go over there, they will assist you in finding it.
Okay.
But my first step, if I were in your position, would be to find that and read it carefully and see if everyone is following what's prescribed in that agreement.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to contact the bank once and I never got a response from the bank because that was before they actually paved behind the bank because it was horrible for them getting in and out of that bank. But they never contacted me because I wanted to talk to see what we could do to discuss the traffic pattern in there. But no, I'm glad to see an office building going in there. I mean, I think it'll add to that strip along there. So.
Yeah. Ray, you don't necessarily see truck traffic going across here. You see it coming in and going all the way to the back?
They park back there. They park everywhere. The semi-trailers will park on that lot there.
Yeah, we've witnessed different times that there were semi-trailers parked on that part of the lot. So that's why we wanted to add that grass buffer in order to prevent those trucks from going over there, and again, trying to help set up that drive aisle, at least on our side. But Ray, I can help you look for those deed restrictions and
Okay.
and stuff too. So
Okay.
Michelle can help you out with that.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't bother me personally. I mean, but my tenants, the hospital in there with semi-trailer traffic around there, and then they put a sign in my lot that the warehouse was back there, and so they moved it across the street right there. So I just, that's my concern, is the traffic pattern around that area. So.
Yeah, we'll look into that as well because there are restrictions on some of those things.
Yeah. But no, I have no problem with the office building. That's
Very
great.
good, thank you. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak for or against this item? Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will motion to approve application for site plan review SP-14-2023 filed by Croys, TC and Son for a new office building on parcel 570010222369 on Fostoria Avenue.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
And that was with the, doing the finalized landscape plan?
Yeah, it's part of the condition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can add that condition.
Perfect.
All right, Jacob?
I'm sorry. Who seconded?
Rob?
All right, thank you. Mr. Klinger,
Aye.
Mayor Murin,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
and Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right, item number five, application for site plan review SP-15-2023 filed by Take 5 Oil Properties LLC for a Take 5 oil service at 601 West Trenton Avenue. CPC staff comments.
This request is located on West Trenton Avenue at the southwest intersection of Bolton Street. It is zoned C2 General Commercial. Along West Trenton Avenue, it is zoned C2 General Commercial. The neighborhood to the south and east is zoned R3 Small Lot Residential. It is not located within the 100-year floodplain. The site has most recently been home to the Pizza Hut restaurant. Staff analysis. The Take 5 Oil Properties LLC proposes a 1,708 square foot oil change center for the location. They would demolish the old structure and construct a new structure that's closer to West Trenton Avenue to accommodate stacking. The new location of the structure meets the setbacks for the C2 district, and the height of the building is 19 feet 10 inches, which is below the height maximum for the district. There will be 3 maintenance bays within the building with the ability to stack up to 10 cars outside without blocking the parking lot area. They have closed the access onto Trenton Avenue, so once the cars leave the maintenance bays, they'll have to loop around the parking area back onto Bolton Street. There is a parking lot that can accommodate 12 parking spaces, with 1 being handicapped accessible. Landscape plan shows the applicant has met the requirements for the lot. They were required to provide 5 trees for the site. They show 6, and they were required to provide 53 shrubs, and they provide 57. There's an existing non-conforming pylon sign for the old Pizza Hut. This will need to be removed. The site can have a monument sign as a replacement, but they'll need to work with the city zoning department on getting approval for that. Staff recommendation, CPC staff recommends approval of application for site plan review SP-15-2023 filed by Take 5 Oil Properties LLC for Take 5 oil service at 601 West Trenton Avenue.
Engineering.
So the site is going to be cutting down on the access points through this, especially on Trenton Avenue and along Bolton there, because on Bolton that's a one big drop right now. So condense that down is going to help out that area quite a bit. So appreciate that. Really pretty standard on our end. Same thing, water and or sanitary permits, just get that through our office. Stormwater, you guys are going to be incorporating quite a bit of impervious or pervious areas. So that is great on our end. So I recommend approval.
Thank you. Fire prevention, just stated a reminder to get all necessary permits prior to construction. So the recommendation before the commission is staff recommends approval of application for site plan review SP-15-2023 filed by Take 5 Oil Properties LLC for a Take 5 oil service at 601 West Trenton Avenue. Discussion. Have anything, if you could introduce yourself, and then if there's anything you would like to add, and if you can make sure it's turned on with the red light at the base.
I think it's on. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, my name's Connor Henderson. I'm here with the applicant from Driven Brands. I am the applicant's engineer. So we've developed the plans for the applicant. We've also worked with city staff. Jacob has been a huge help during the process to get it to this point. He did a great job at summarizing the project and the new use and the overall intent of the project. So with that, I'll answer any questions or anything that anyone has.
Thank you. So overall, I'm happy to see this property getting back in circulation. It definitely has been an eyesore sitting there. I really like the landscaping improvements and the overall flow throughout. One question I had, I love, again, the greenery that you're adding around on that, the property line that is, I think it's on the south property line that's abutting the residential. I see you have a lot of shrubs. What type of height is going to be gained there with those shrubs just to provide a buffer to those properties?
Yeah, I believe those shrubs won't exceed a height of like 3 feet. They're not intended, they'll intend, screening to an extent of about 3 feet. Nothing, it's not like a fence or something like that would be, but there is a requirement to provide the shrubs, and we figured a good spot would to line the residential area with it.
Yeah, from my perspective, I would really like to see those have some more height to them.
Okay.
And I would even be comfortable, if we need to eliminate some of the shrubs right along the parking on that east side. I have a fancy thing here I can use.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we need to thin those out to then, spend that money elsewhere to get larger shrubs, I think that is definitely preferred, in my opinion.
Okay.
Along with that, Mayor, you're showing a lot of your symbol here for your landscaping. I assume there's no lawn area, the grass area.
There's a lot of grass area.
Is
There's
it?
actually a reduction in impervious surface from
Right.
what this site extends to today.
Right.
So
But-
all that area that's parking lot where you're pointing at right now,
Yeah.
that'll all be grass area.
Okay, well, you're showing a round symbol here that you would think is another plant, but I
Oh.
didn't see anything called out for a plant.
Yeah, so on the plan set, there's an irrigation system that's part of the project, which is on the landscaping plan. This is the city's overlay that they've created, but I believe the plan set's part of this. But that is a spray pattern for the irrigation that's going in onto the site.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I don't see any landscaping here. Correct? I don't see any landscaping along here or here, if that's your irrigation pattern.
Yes, sorry, I believe that's correct.
Yes, we need it along the south boundary.
So as the mayor was indicating, if we want to move shrubs from the parking lot area, or even we can add shrubs as part of the overall plan and maintain parking screening, because that also is a requirement for landscaping. We can add shrubs along there to create a better screening
Right.
along the residential property line.
Yes, I like what you've done up here and all, and that, I think that's good, but I would agree that we need some landscaping in there.
Yes, sir.
So that's the south.
You've got your dumpster back here.
Yes.
That, when is when your trash pickup is? Is it daytime during business hours? Is it specifically at off hours or what? Because as I see it, you got to pull all the way in and you got to back all the way out.
That's correct. You know, the site is limited in some maneuverability for trash pickup. However, the intent is to schedule trash pickup during non-service hours so that there's no conflict with customers coming in and out. It'll be a coordinated pickup when the trash truck does arrive, so that there's no negative effect on surrounding properties and also the daily business that occurs.
Okay, now along with trash, I assume you have recyclable products going out of the site too.
Correct.
And then also deliveries. Deliveries taking place then off hours also?
Yeah, deliveries will occur. However, they're done with a standard pickup truck, is my understanding. So it can actually use one of the parking spots. They
Okay.
can make the deliveries from the parking, so there should not be any conflicts there.
Okay.
And Dan, we do, as a city, have restrictions on hours that trash service can occur to limit disruption, especially when abutting residential areas.
Uh-huh. Okay.
What are your regular business hours?
I believe they're 7 to 7.
Jeremy, you said there was an inside drop in there. I don't understand what that was referring to.
Yeah, so I forgot that was this one. So I think up there on the sanitary, you guys had spec'd out as an inside drop. So what that is, you can't have your sanitary more than 2 feet difference on your inverts, and if it's more than that, you got to have a drop system. We don't do inside drops, we only do outside drops.
Correct.
So that will have to be changed to an outside drop. But it's just, instead of the system being inside the manhole, we make it be on the outside of the manhole. So it's
Okay.
just pretty much you have a T with, if it high flow, it shoots out. If not, it's going down into a drop.
Okay. Now, will you have pits in these bays for workers to change oil and so forth?
Yeah, I believe so.
They're shallow pits.
The what?
They're shallow pits, very shallow, like 3 or 4 feet deep.
Do you have lifts then, or how do they?
No lifts. There's no underground storage. It's all very shallow, coffin-like pits.
Oh. Huh.
Not to sound.
I'm not sure I want to work there. Okay. And I see that even though you've got 12 parking, I don't see any access for patrons to come into the building to talk, get a service card or anything.
Sorry, it's all stay in your car. So there's no parking to go inside any of the buildings.
Yep. So people stack here. Work happens. You loop back out. There is access through a door on the east side of the plan here. If someone needed to make their way from the parking lot, they could walk through here. We have handicap access here. This across the site here is graded to meet ADA requirements, and then someone could enter the door from the east side. So there's accessibility from this side across the drive bays and then into the building there.
Okay. When you get your deliveries then, if it's off hours, or, well, like you said, it could even be a pickup, so they can just bring them in the regular bays or something.
Correct.
So I assume you getting semi-bulk deliveries of oil and so forth?
It's generally once or twice a week.
Okay.
And they're in large packages that go into the oil bins.
Okay. If that's a 4-foot deep pit, how do you work in there?
So they're typically pretty long, from the top of the building to from the exit of the building to kind of the entrance. So there's a good bit of airflow
And are they on the crawlers? I think it's kind of what you're getting
yeah,
at.
it's like a sliding, type rolling thing in the bottom of the pit.
Oh. Okay.
It's similar to Valvoline. There's on Tiffany. It's very similar concept to that.
Was there anyone else here that wanted to speak for or against this item? Okay.
Oh, Matt left here, but the screening I wanted to talk about, because I didn't know what these were at the time, obviously. But I noticed as I was there pulling out, even over here at the Marathon Station, the bushes they have are close enough to the edge of the road that it really makes it difficult to see down very far. And I wanted to make sure we didn't get into that situation here. Now, if we do a monument sign, Jacob, can you help me here? Is it something that would project in this direction, or would it be that direction so that we don't block that view?
There is a 25-foot triangled area that we do not allow a sign to be in.
Oh, okay.
So vision shouldn't be an issue with that.
So 25 foot this way, 25 foot this way?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
It's all part of a calculation through your intersection sight distance of where a car would be sitting and where you can see for a clearance zone.
Yeah. Okay, an issue might be to approach Marathon and maybe have them address those shrubs out front, because it is hard to see to the right.
We'll take that in consideration, get a hold of them, have them trim them up.
Yeah. Maybe they just need to be trimmed.
Other questions or comments?
If you can go back to the last picture, please. The way the building's set up and you have access. I'm not on. There I am, sorry. Based on the building layout, where your parking is compared to your building access, would it make sense to flip your building? Would that impede what you're trying to accomplish? You would actually have pedestrian or customer access with where your parking is. You still have 3 lanes that are the flow of traffic would not be impacted.
Yeah, we did discuss that during the plan production, but the way that the project or the building is set up with all of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing and all of that lends itself to this orientation. So providing access across the bays, if someone's walking across, it's not like cars are shooting out of there. It's, very calm. It's a coordinated event. So the people walking across aren't at any risk. And like I said, it meets the ADA requirements for slopes and all that to get across. But I do understand your point. Just however, the prototypes for these buildings lend themselves to this configuration.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're doing the work, the garage door in the front is closed, and then they open it once they're done, correct?
Yeah, the garage doors can go up and down,
Yeah.
for each, for each bay.
Okay.
But
Any other?
It's not a specific operation where you keep the doors closed?
No,
Necessary.
it's kept open during business hours, unless it's cold or.
Yeah, okay.
Certain instances they'll be closed.
Yeah, which is 6-7 months out of the year.
Don't remind us. All right. Seeing no further discussion, I will motion to approve application for site plan review SP-15-2023 filed by Take 5 Oil Properties LLC for a Take 5 oil service at 601 West Trenton Avenue, with the condition that the applicant work with Regional Planning Commission to configure or add privacy providing landscaping on the south boundary abutting the residential properties.
And maybe add the sign to that?
We can add that. They work with.
Or does that take place through the zoning permit process?
Correct. It would be through zoning.
Okay.
So,
That's why we have him.
Okay.
so just the condition on the landscaping on the south side.
Correct.
Yeah.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mayor Murin,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder,
Aye.
and Mr. Klinger.
Aye.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I don't think I'd want to work in that 4-foot pit.
Moving on to item number 6, application for conditional use CU-10-2023 filed by Tabitha Castret to establish an Airbnb at 2004 South Main Street. CPC staff comments.
This request is on the west side of Main Street, just south of the intersection with Highland Drive. It is zoned R2 medium lot residential. To the north and west, it is zoned O1 office institution for the hospital. And to the south and east, it is zoned R2 medium lot residential. It is not located within the 100-year floodplain. The site is a single-family home. The applicant, Ms. Castret, has listed the property as on Airbnb. The city was notified of that the property operated as an Airbnb through a complaint due to noise created by a guest staying at the property. The home has 3 bedrooms listed within the residence. There's enough driveway space and garage spaces to accommodate up to 6 parking spaces. Given the location on Main Street and the location just south of the hospital, staff was supportive of the request for the conditional use. Staff would remind the applicant that conditional uses are revocable permits, so if the city continues to receive complaints about the property, they may withdraw the permit. I will note that I did receive a call this morning from a neighbor. I believe his name was Logsden. I think he lives like 2 houses down. He says that he's noticed a lot of noise coming from the property. He was unable to attend the meeting today, but he was expressing that he was not supportive of the conditional use request, and that there's been a lot of noise and parties at the residence because of the pool in the back. And so just wanted to state that for the record. So staff recommendation, CPC staff recommends approval of the application for conditional use CU-10-2023 filed by Tabitha Castret to establish an Airbnb at 2004 South Main Street.
Engineering?
No comment.
There was no comment listed from fire prevention, so the recommendation before the commission, staff recommends approval of the application for conditional use CU-10-2023 filed by Tabitha Castret to establish an Airbnb at 2004 South Main Street. I believe the applicant's here to speak on this item. If you could please come forward, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about your request.
Hello. I'm Tabitha Castret, 2004.
And move the microphone closer to you. It doesn't pick up very well. If you can just introduce yourself again.
Okay. Tabitha Castret, 2004 South Main Street.
And can you tell us a little bit about your request?
I have my house listed as an Airbnb.
Okay, so you're going to have to speak up because we are recording and folks in the audience can't hear you very well.
Yeah.
But my question, so do you live at the property and then also rent out rooms, or it is purely a rental property?
No, I live there, but when I travel for 3 months, I rent the house.
Okay.
You are
How long
a
have you
traveling
owned the
nurse,
property?
correct? Yeah.
Oh.
She's a traveling nurse with the hospital.
Oh, okay. How long have you owned the property?
It'll be a year next month.
And how long have you been operating the
3 months.
3 months? And what's your schedule? Are you 3 months on, 3 months off, or what might that?
Just whatever I decide. So I'm in Texas now. I just flew in last night. I'm there for 5 more weeks, and then I'll be back until I decide to.
Okay.
So with an Airbnb structure, what, if any, restrictions are you able to place or penalties that you're able to, fines, for example, on a tenant that would rent out the space and then get a complaint? Is there any ability for you to do that? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have right hours set and rules listed too. So if they have any complaints, I just tell Airbnb and then they reach out to them.
So I think folks in the audience still cannot hear you. So one, I don't know if your microphone is on.
Went on red, right?
Yeah.
Yep, it's on now.
Yeah, so I'll just repeat what I think I heard you said, that you are able to list rules as well as quiet hours, correct?
Mhm.
And what do you have the quiet hours listed as?
10 p.m.
10 p.m. Okay. To what time in the morning?
Oh, I don't have a morning time.
Okay. So it's not like
But
10
I mean, I
p.m.
can
to
change it, but
Okay.
just after 10.
Okay.
Matt, we have pretty specific guidelines on bed and breakfast, but I don't see a correlation between Airbnb or, and I don't know if
Air
some
bed
of
and
the,
breakfast?
huh?
Air bed and
Yeah.
breakfast?
Yeah.
So the city has traditionally applied the bed and breakfast regulations to Airbnbs as a conditional use, with the understanding that the main difference between the two is a bed and breakfast generally has someone on site, where an Airbnb most likely does not have someone on site. Had a discussion with, I guess, the realtor that was involved with this, and he expressed some frustration in the code, not tying Airbnb directly to, not tying Air bed and breakfast directly to bed and breakfast.
Yes, right.
So with the proposed changes to the code, I did add a definition of a short-term rental. We added and connected the two. So if someone simply looked at the code, my hope was it'd be a little more clear that there is a connection between the two, and these are the rules that you're supposed to follow.
Okay. Well, with a bed and breakfast, you need to have an ID number and proof of incorporation, apparently. Would that be true with the B&B or the Airbnb?
That's not in the zoning code, I don't believe.
Yeah, I pulled that out. The ID number is required and a proof of incorporation for a B&B.
Okay. Is that in the administration, in other sections of the?
I think it was under probably the definitions of B&B.
Okay.
Yeah. Tabitha, when you rent this out, do you rent it to a couple days at a time, week at a time, 3 months at a time? What's your rules?
Whatever they need. So I have it set up as they have to request through me. They can't just automatically book it. So I can determine if I want to rent to them. And sometimes it's just people passing through for the night. The most it's ever been is March. I had one lady do a whole month.
So you could have people changing. Is there a minimum of a week, or?
Mm-mm.
So you could have somebody changing in there every couple days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So-
I just don't think the complaints correlate it to being a Airbnb, because I could live at my own house and have noise parties all the time if I wanted. So I don't think that relates to renting it as an Airbnb at all.
So I think there are some other individuals in the audience who wanted to speak. So was there anyone else that wanted to speak for or against this item? If you could come forward and introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Louise Shadle, and I live right next door on the corner of Main and Highland in the brick house. And my bedroom is, you can see the windows. It's right next to the swimming pool and the people coming in and out. And I am against this because it is a single-family neighborhood. And I don't want all of the people coming and going that I don't know, and all of the noise. And there was a party, and the 10 o'clock thing did not work because they were in and out, banging the door for many hours in the swimming pool. And there's no parking. So they have to park in the hospital parking lot, which is right next to my lot. And so I am against this because I don't know the people coming and going, and it's a quiet neighborhood, and that's why we wanted to buy a house there and live there, because there's no restaurants and no apartment buildings. It's a single family house. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Did you want to speak? If you could introduce yourself, please.
I'm Rob Love. I'm Tabitha's real estate agent and brother-in-law. The thought of this neighborhood being a quiet neighborhood is somewhat silly to me. This is probably one of the busiest streets next to the busiest building in Findlay that we land helicopters on. I am probably at her house more than anyone. And as far as the quiet times and quiet hours go, I believe the city has a specific ordinance. I'm unsure of what those times are, but I'm pretty sure they are later than 10 o'clock. The argument of parking in other private areas, I mean, it would take a grocery list of areas to explain where where a tenant is unable to park. It's clearly stated in that back parking lot, like just to the north of Tabitha's house, that it's hospital parking, or it's public, or private parking with the hospital. I mean, it's the same as if they were to park on Main Street, which there's no parking in front of the house. I don't know how she would control that any more than, she could if she wasn't home and somebody was visiting. I'm definitely for this. I think one of the biggest arguments was a lot of people coming and going in this neighborhood. And, Tabitha works at the emergency room at Blanchard Valley when she's home. And, they have several hundred people a day go through. That is, literally 100 yards from this house. So it's not like this is a quiet cul-de-sac that 5 people go through a day. This is a very frequented neighborhood in the city. So that's all.
Thank you.
Do you know if there's any other B&Bs or
There's like 12 or more
in this
Findlay.
neighborhood?
I don't know about this neighborhood. You can look it up on Airbnb.
But in the city of Findlay?
Oh yeah, there's lots.
Well, that was one of the discussions we had, was the transparency of the code. I've been a realtor in Findlay for 3 years. I talked to several brokers and other real estate agents. None of us knew this, that the city of Findlay was categorizing Airbnbs as bed and breakfast. I understand they're adjacent, but there's a massive gray area that my understanding is we're working on shoring up. I definitely see that there is several Airbnbs in Findlay, and my understanding is we are only tackling these issues if there's a complaint, which I feel like is somewhat silly to go about this without it being completely transparent.
Also, I think they're upset about one event. Like, I've had lots of guests that have not used the pool, have been to a couple that haven't even left the house. And after that is when I posted the quiet hours, because I realized you could. But none of the neighbors came to me or called the city about a noise complaint or anything. They just realized it was an Airbnb somehow and got upset. But that was one complaint out of 3 months of lots of guests. That's it.
How many times do you suppose you've rented this to different people?
I could pull it up, but probably 30. I don't know.
It's a 3-bedroom, correct?
Yeah, but I only rent it as a 2-bedroom.
You rent it as a 2.
Mhm.
In my travels, I've rented houses like this as well. And I understand there's bed limitations, and then there's other abilities to rent to a larger group. Do you limit the amount of
Yeah.
people?
Mhm.
How do we monitor that, or how do we police when you
So
are in
they-
Texas? How do
yeah.
we police this so you and your private property is a good neighbor to everyone around you when you're
So I have
doing things?
cameras on the outside of the house, so I can see how many people are coming and going too. Mhm.
And just to the south of her house, that's like a private drive that's shared by several residents, as well as Blanchard Valley. And we have seen people parking in that alley, just by mistake. Accidents happen, and we're able to address those, case by case when it's happening.
Do you have someone, when you are out of town and you rent this, who's your site manager? Okay. So I'm just making sure, because there has to be an emergency contact, realistically.
I live on Green Lawn. I'm literally the first house on Green Lawn. I could run to this house in about 3 minutes. So, I'm very easily accessible as far as the property goes.
So I definitely understand the concerns of the neighbors. I also understand, your desire to use this property in this manner. I'm fine with the conditional use, recognizing that I think you've heard the concerns, and it's not all year, all the time. I think this is kind of a good test case for us to be able to monitor. Obviously, it is a conditional use. So if we start having a lot of issues, or if police are called out for a bunch of parties and we start seeing that, then it can be revoked. But given that it is timeframes that are limited, I guess I'm kind of open to giving it a try. I also do think that, you made a good point with there is a lot of traffic through this area already. It would be a little different if it was completely back on a cul-de-sac or something like that. So I guess I understand the concerns for sure of the neighbors, and I think maybe we can have some good communication between the neighbors and the city to be able to make sure that it's not intrusive to the neighborhood, but also is able to be, useful. I think this is something we see, throughout our community. I know very similarly, I've, rented homes before, and you got to be considerate of the neighborhood and address issues when they come up. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I have a question, if I could ask. I know this is a revocable. What is the number of complaints, or is that defined anywhere? Or I mean, obviously the hope is to get 0.
Sure.
But
in revoking the permit, which I've been here almost 17, 20 years, I don't know. I can't remember one that we have revoked. The process I would recommend is coming before this board again to vote to revoke the permit.
So to answer your question a little more directly, there is not a hard and fast guideline for when it is revoked. I would say, my words of wisdom would be, it's not just, if you have neighbors calling us constantly, it would be neighbors actually having like the police come out because of noise disturbances, or, too many people on site, different things like that. It's not just, hey, I don't like this. It needs to be like actually documenting a disruption.
Tabitha, have you had any communications with any of the neighbors regarding setting this up, or any issues that have developed in the past? So no direct communication?
Nope. Mm-mm.
Was there anyone else in the audience that wanted to speak for or against this item? Okay, was there other questions, comments from the commission?
Oh.
If you need to come down front, if you can introduce yourself and provide your address, please.
Hi, I'm Barbara Odd. I live directly across the street from the property. And I thought she was an Avon lady. I really did. People were coming and going, and I thought, boy, she's busy. And then I talked to the previous owner, and she said she has set up a Airbnb. And I wondered how she did it without changing the zoning, or I was somewhat concerned because I feel South Main Street is definitely an asset to Findlay. Big, beautiful homes. You change the zoning, it will be Tiffin Avenue. And I realize we do have a lot of traffic. But I love the neighborhood. I hate to see it go.
Appreciate your concerns. Yep, so I want to clarify, again, the conditional use, it can be revoked. It's not changing it to a multifamily duplex or something like that, which also is very much permitted.
Not in this zoning district.
Thank you.
But bed and breakfast are a conditional use in the residential district.
Correct. Thank you for the clarification.
And at the current time, we're not tying the two together until we approve the new zoning code, correct?
We are tying,
but
the two are tied together.
Currently?
Yes.
Okay.
We had long discussions about it. An bed and breakfast, people stay overnight, 1 night, 10 nights. An Airbnb, other than a curator not being there, it's how you schedule. Instead of calling them, you do it on an app. So, it's a little different method, but in a way, it's really very closely the same thing. So we have applied Airbnbs to bed and breakfast. With the proposed updates, we're just tying them more clearly together.
Okay.
And I guess one thing that also makes me think about this is, again, I know that there are multiple rental properties surrounding the hospital that, a doctor coming in to perform surgeries at the hospital may rent it out for a night. There's a lot of, or a week or multiple months, when you're gone. So I think that this is already occurring. Those are just properties that are owned by the hospital. And so they're operating a little bit differently because, again, they're not necessarily renting it from an outside entity. They're just kind of scheduling it through the hospital, is my understanding. So I think that this, again, if it's disruptive, then we're going to readdress it because we definitely don't want it to be a negative impact on the neighborhood. But I think there's an opportunity, hopefully, for the neighborhood to speak and see how it goes. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, again, another one for Matt. Matt, if we're tied together, then if a bed and breakfast is requiring an ID and an incorporation, should this require an ID and incorporation?
I would have to look at that. And I'm very familiar with the code, and I don't remember seeing that, so I want to take a look at it. And
it's in the definition of B&B.
Okay.
Okay.
Tabitha, to be set up with Airbnb, do you have to provide certificates of liability insurance or anything like that?
No.
Okay. You don't have to have an entity set up or anything like that. Okay. All right. Hearing no further discussion, I will motion to approve application for conditional use CU-10-2023 filed by Tabitha Castrette to establish an Airbnb at 2004 South Main Street. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
Mr. Clear.
Aye.
Mayor Murin.
Aye. All right. Guys, don't cause this a problem. All right, item number 7 was tabled at the beginning of the meeting. Moving on to item number 8, application for zoning amendment ZA-05-2023 filed by Andec LLC to rezone parcel 60000302210 on West McPherson Avenue from O1 office/institution to M2 multifamily high density. CPC staff comments.
I believe Dan is passing out an updated site plan. Okay, so CPC staff. This request is located on the south side of West McPherson Avenue, just east of the intersection with Hurd Avenue. It is zoned O1 office institution. It is in a neighborhood of R1 large lot residential. It is not located within the floodplain, and the City of Findlay land use plan designates the area as office. This site is currently vacant, and it was originally a part of the Lake Cascades PUD, but remained office after the PUDs were removed from the code. There were never any plans presented for these lots on this parcel. Staff analysis, the applicant would like to rezone the property to construct a 3-story apartment building on the site. While the request is a deviation from the Findlay land use plan, the request does fit within the residential character of the neighborhood. The site is over an acre in size and can accommodate the additional units of residential on site. While there is a single-family residential neighborhood across West McPherson Avenue, this site is surrounded by a mix of residential, office, and the utility structures just to the west. Staff recommends that Findlay City Planning Commission recommend approval of the application for zoning amendment ZA-05-2023 filed by ANDEC LLC to rezone parcel 6000003022210 on West McPherson Avenue from office O1 office institution to M2 multifamily high density.
Engineering.
No comment.
All right, fire prevention, let me see, I turned pages. Fire prevention had no comment, so the recommendation before the commission is staff recommends approval of application for zoning amendment ZA-05-2023 filed by ANDEC LLC to rezone parcel 6000000302210 on West McPherson Avenue from O1 office/institution to M2 multifamily high density. I will discussion. Andrew, if you could introduce yourself, please, and tell us a little bit about your project.
My name is Andrew Yates. I'm looking to develop this site. When I was looking for different locations, obviously there are very few options in Findlay, especially already zoned multifamily. So this location made sense. It had a attractive near Lake Cascades. One of the considerations was the large.
Is the microphone on? I'm sorry, I don't know if this microphone is just really quiet today. Sorry.
One of the considerations was obviously the tower beside it and obviously the substation. That was a debate whether I even wanted to put multifamily there, or whether this would be attractive enough for prospective tenants. So that was something I figured if I could screen that off, that would suffice. So I have another, ironically, 24-unit apartment complex that I bought a couple years ago, and the demand for one-bedroom, 2 and 1-bedroom apartments, but 1-bedroom apartments specifically, something a little bit higher quality. These others, we have stainless steel appliances. We provide washer and dryer, more high-end finishes. There's a demand for that. So, and the fact that not a lot of new development has gone on, I wanted to be able to provide that, and specifically with a view of Lake Cascades. I want to have balconies on the back of these units, make them, again, a little bit more high-end. I know that whether traveling nurses or close to the proximity of the hospital in 75, this would be a very attractive place for residents. So this is something I was looking to do. Also, trying to work with the YMCA actually to move an existing structure to here, and then we're basically going to tear off all the exterior. We have to bring everything up to code, so this will be indistinguishable from new construction. This is basically new construction with old walls. So we have to bring everything up to code anyways. But this could be a benefit to the YMCA as well. But yeah, I do have, I didn't print off a bunch. I have a copy of what the aesthetics will look like of the building. I can show you here. I tried to, this does not have the masonry and whatnot, so I kind of drew on there what it may look like. Again, that you have up here doesn't show any masonry on the first floor or some other stacks that we will be doing. So a bit plain right there, but that at least gives you a better idea of what it would look like. Part of this, again, I want to be respectful of the neighbors. So on the, it would be the west side, excuse me, the east side of the parcel, we will have an 8-foot fence screening off that residential portion. On the west side, which is against the substation and all of that, we're going to build a 2-foot berm and then put an 8-foot fence on that, again, to really separate the space. We're going to have the parking lot in the front to just have easy access for tenants, and it pushes the building back towards the back of the lot, which again, I realize it's a 3-story building. However, how it's currently zoned, I could put a 4+ story office building there right now, and I could put that on the front of the lot. So this is a 3-story building on the back of the parcel. Again, with that, I wanted to offer views to the tenants that you don't get a lot of in Findlay. Very cool view of Lake Cascades. These most likely are going to be young professionals or, single adults, in their 50s, 60s, that this would be attractive to. So again, the finishes are going to be stainless steel appliances, granite countertops. These are high-end units. They're smaller units, but I think this is something that would be good for Findlay, and I think this would be a great location for it. And again, I have gone out of my way to try to communicate with the residents. We sent out a letter actually we hand-delivered letters along with pictures of other projects we've done to the residents. If there's any concern, any conversation want to have, we'll have contact information. I have not heard from one person on anything.
This drawing, it says south elevation. Is this the side that will face McPherson or the side that will face Lake Cascade?
If it says, I apologize, that is the north. I mean, that is facing north. That faces McPherson. And again, another thing too, I realize there's railing, so I'm gonna have like horizontal cabling on the railing, so it's very, very discreet, so you don't look at the building and see all railing. I think that's unattractive. So I am very cognizant of the fact that I want this to be attractive, not just for the neighborhood, but at the end of the day, I want to make it attractive for the residents. So it's only in my best interest to do so. Oh, as well, one thing I want to mention, as far as the site plan, we're proposing to have a dog park. We want to connect. We're working with why can I think? National Lime and Stone to get an easement to connect to the bike path. They're working with me on that. They want to see what it looks like, obviously. So I want to make this attractive for Findlay. Where it currently sits is if the tenants are right there, they could just connect right to the bike path off the back of the building. It would be the south or the southeast portion of the building. Yeah, right.
The building's going to be positioned down in here, and then they're talking about trying to have an access down to this pathway.
So it will, again, having the fences on either side of it, having the parking lot in front and the building in back from that standpoint, it's going to be very, I don't want to say on an island, but it's going to be very screened off from the residential area. Obviously, especially the residential area to the parcel immediately east of it. Obviously, we're in close proximity. Hence the 8-foot fence. We want to be respectful both for them, and I want to separate that space so it's attractive for the tenants as well.
So Andrew, a couple of quick questions. Remind me how many units?
24 units.
Okay.
24 units.
And would it be possible, so I like the overall layout. I do think that, it's, if you're going to put a structure like this here, that you've done a lot to try to make it blend in with the neighborhood. Do you think there's an opportunity, and this might be something we probably just, I guess I'll add, if you can work with Jeremy to try to put trees along the roadway as well? I know we have some restrictions on, utility,
Sure.
proximity, things like that, but I think putting trees along that front edge would also go a long way.
Yeah.
And just, again, providing more of a buffer between the parking lot and the residents across the street, even though there's aren't properties immediately across the street.
Yeah, that wouldn't be an issue as well. We try to structure around a lot of mature trees just to keep that there and keep that aesthetic. But yeah, that would not be an issue.
And I would also just, I know this is your intention, but I want to make sure that it's documented that dog park area is just for the residents.
Yeah.
And not for necessarily the public.
Yeah. One thing we can do, I don't see it becoming an issue, especially being on the south portion. Yeah, if you could pull that up.
It's going to be tucked back in this area here, so.
Yeah, but if you have access on a bike path, somebody could easily kind of just walk in. And so I think just making sure that there's signage, that it's not necessarily a public space.
One additional thing we can do, and we've done it, I don't know that it would be necessary. I think this is something we could do if it became a problem. There's ways you could have key fobs to where all kind of entrance that only tenants get that. I don't see that being an issue, but I agree if it would, there's ways to resolve that.
Thank you.
They could certainly always hop the fence, but I don't think that's a problem.
This kind of illustrates there is kind of a natural barrier, an elevation change. So it wouldn't be too inviting to jump through there, even if there's a connection down here.
And one additional thing I will comment, since you mentioned that, Matt, I actually was talking to them about that. They would probably also allow me on their parcel to grade that out, to clean that up. It's full of just debris and is unattractive. So as we're doing that, we go another 10 and 12 feet. It's pretty steep, but we would just grade that out, seed it, or put landscaping, something that's more attractive than groundhogs and asphalt.
Plus, as cities where Natural Limestone does control the landscaping, and they try to keep that corridor nice and clean, add new mulching, new shrubs and trees and stuff on a yearly basis. So, again, Andrew's working with them, again, to try to keep that consistency in landscaping and cleanliness throughout that whole stretch.
Well, one additional comment on that point, if you can pull up or zoom in on the parcel, on the very south end of the parcel, there's a sliver that they still own just immediately south of that. That's what I was referencing that they would allow me to work with, potentially. That being the case, they could always put up 10-foot, 12-foot, 20-foot trees that would block off my tenant's view. So it's, again, I'm very motivated to make sure this is attractive.
So when you say working with them, they're in support of this?
I think they're not opposed to it. However, I said, out of respect for him, I said, hey, as soon as we have the elevations of the back, the actual south elevations, they're going to want to see those and make sure that they like the look, because you pull out of there, you're staring directly at the back of this building. So I'm aware of that. They want to see that, make sure that they're good with it before they do anything, obviously. But they seem very amicable if that were the case.
The one thing too is their primary building is over here. This is kind of almost a straight view to the lake, so it's not like they're in conflict with them looking out their executive boardroom directly into that. They're actually looking, into this open area right here. So again, that provides that open corridor.
And I just think it also offers something for people looking for apartments in Findlay. Again, the grading and elevation of Findlay is relatively flat. You don't get many opportunities for views like that, so hence the reason that I wanted to try to do 3-story. I thought 4 might be pushing it too much. So with the 3 stories and the balconies that are on these, it'll be a very, very nice view and a good option for people.
You're talking about moving the building at the Y, so you would be about doubling it in size?
Yeah, so the existing structure is 12 units. We're just going to basically pull it down to a shell, and then it's going to get moved and then jacked up 1 floor, and the new framing will be underneath, and then we'll build 2 more foundations to the east. So it'll ultimately be 24 units.
Okay.
And part of the reason for that is simply to make the project make sense cost-wise.
Right.
And again, they're only 500 some square foot, 1-bedroom apartments.
Okay. I would want to make a statement here that you make sure that you follow the architectural guidelines that are in the zoning code.
Yeah, I'm working with Wood County and RCM currently.
So, some fenestration on the building, some offsets and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The problem I've been dealing with here too is that we've got that huge tower in the back corner. And by changing the zoning, then we're automatically making that in non-compliance with the requirements for communication towers. You're supposed to be 500 feet from residential. You're currently on an office type site. What comes into play then? You might have to wait for Matt to repeat that.
That's the radio tower, not a cell tower?
Huh? It's communication tower.
That tower, yeah. So it's the radio station's tower.
Well, I think that still falls in the same category.
While
Matt?
they're discussing that, I was just are there other people that wanted to speak on this item?
Oh,
So
okay.
if you wouldn't mind, Andrew, taking a seat, we'll have a couple of folks come forward. If you want to come forward and please introduce yourself and provide your address, and then you may make your remarks.
Hi, how are you all doing?
Good.
I'll try and talk loud enough for you. First off, I'm Dave Peschel. I live at 321 West McPherson, almost right next to the project that's happening. And I understand the need for the person who owns a property to make money on the investment. I understand that. But me being right next to the project, I like my my privacy, my respect of privacy. Now we're looking at 3 levels. And if you bring up, could you bring up the house area right there? Those houses straight ahead.
Bring up the
Yeah,
street
right,
view?
a little over to the right there. Now then, the property line is literally right next to that house. I'm the one after that house. Now, granted, they're going to put up an 8-foot fence, but still, being 3 stories up, you could say, "Hey, kids, how you doing there? What's cooking on the barbecue?" I don't know how you would feel about having apartment buildings right next to your house, but for me personally, I'm a little bit nervous about people actually being able, off the balconies, no matter which way their window's facing, off the balconies, looking down on my property. Other concerns, trash and runoff. Basically, what once is a field is no longer going to be a field. It's going to be a parking lot, basically. So where's all that water going to run? Well, one, probably in the backyards. And then, do we have the storm sewage, or storm drainage, I should say, to handle that type of water coming off now parking lot? We'll run right into Lake Cascades, the road right over it. We'll start cascading over Cascades. I don't know. Also, the extra trash coming from an apartment building. Traffic. Now then, there's a little bit of traffic because that's almost like a throughway. If you're driving down Western and you want to quickly get over towards Speedway, you can cut through McPherson, and there's a little bit of traffic through that way. But we don't see a lot of traffic until you see the games happen at Donnell Stadium and special events. Lots of traffic, lots of public parking over there. There's also restrictions on the road, as you know, for hours of parking on the street, but they're going to have their own parking lot, so that shouldn't be a problem. But the main thing with traffic is the end of McPherson ends at Main Street, right by the dental office, right by Speedway, and right in the biggest congested area you can imagine during rush hour. Now, trying to get over there, trying to make a left turn on there is impossible as is. I'm not sure how much more traffic this is going to add to it, but it's a little bit of a concern. Especially you have schools, Donnell, the practice field, obviously you see where the practice field is. So there is just a lot of pedestrian traffic as well. Kids, school buses, and the like. Jefferson School is just right down the road. Lots of traffic coming from that way as well. Also, I forgot to tell you about the runoff. A main thing is that the quarry's right over there. About 2 foot down, it's solid rock. So with the runoff, it doesn't soak in very well. So that's also another reason why you'll see a lot of puddling around that area. And last but not least on that subject is the noise. How much more noise are we going to have in the neighborhood now? Hopefully it'll be a bunch of physicians or whatever, but you can't guarantee who's going to rent those apartments. And I'm just going to bring up my last real concern, I'll let someone else talk, is saleability of my property because of this development. Now, it's easier to sell your property if you have a nice, beautiful little field, or even a doctor's office, whatever it was, right next door. But now, if you have a 3-story apartment, what's it going to do for me and my ability to sell that property? So granted, they'll be making money on it, but will the residents be gaining anything from it? Maybe a little bit of housing. There's not going to be a whole lot, 24 units. In fact, I even saw the proposal. It said originally 18 units on the proposal here. But is it worth it? That's my question. Is it really that much worth it? So that's all for you to decide. Thank you.
So a couple of your things. One, I do want to let you know that on the site plan, I'm just letting you know, on one of the concerns with the site plan, there is a detention basin, which is required for stormwater runoff.
Right.
So that will be able to address the water runoff.
Is it going to be like an oil water separating system where the runoff from the parking lot will actually separate the oil from the water coming off the runoff?
I don't believe we require that in any of our detention basins.
No,
Typically,
within the detention ponds, and this is through EPA as well, they have to have water quality parameters for that. So it's not just going to the detention pond being straight out. It has
Right,
to be
it has to
metered
have the
out.
separation,
So
gravity
there's
separation.
no, I mean, it's no different than any other parking lot. We don't put oil water separators. That's all built within how long it takes to go from point A to point B for water
Okay, so
quality.
there's going to be an open pond, basically.
Yes.
Okay, and there's going to be fencing, because that is, like I said, a lot of kids go through there. There's a school just right down the road. There's going to be proper fencing, I assume?
It's fencing.
Not be a wet pond, so there won't be
Okay,
water in those
okay, I know
things,
what
so
you're
it'll be
talking about
dry.
then.
So during the storm events, water will come up, but it'll slowly go out of the pond.
But how is that going to affect the yards and stuff? Because I already get puddles just because there's just solid rock underneath there. And you're going to get drainage. Is every drainage going to go right into there?
Yes.
You're going to guarantee it's not going to go into the yards?
Correct. The building, the parking lot, everything will be connected to that detention basin, slowly metered out into the existing storm sewer.
So we get to call you in case it's different, right?
Yes.
But yeah, those are my concerns. Basically, traffic and just what I've said before, and a lot of privacy. A lot of it has to do with privacy.
No, understandable. Andrew, can you come up and address a couple of things? So obviously, on the design currently with the open staircase on the end, obviously you kind of want open air movement. That's good. But is there an opportunity to maybe put a little bit of architectural detail on the end that would help provide a little more, so you're not immediately looking at the properties?
Yeah, potentially. One thing I do want to comment about that, and I totally understand as far as a privacy standpoint, there will be no windows on the east or west side. So there will be no one overlooking. I understand that, it's close proximity. There will be no one looking down over because there are no windows. The back balconies the first ones are many feet over, so they won't even be able to see around. So yes, the stair would be the only thing. One other thing, I think it's set back 55 feet in totality. So we're talking the edge of the building is going to be 40, 50.
It's 40 feet off the property line.
Yeah.
So it's not
So,
directly next to it.
so before the fence, it'll be 40 foot back to begin with, no windows. As far as, so what's your suggestion, Mayor?
Well, I was just going to add, and actually it might be addressed by my other question here. It looks like there's plenty of room to add trees, and it looks like even on the plan there
Yeah.
is a tree on your property to provide additional privacy barrier from the neighbors.
Correct.
We're gonna have to be cautious of that. The city has a public sanitary and a public water line running down that east property.
Darn city.
So, I mean, we'd be more than happy to put trees on top of utilities, but when Jeremy goes to fix them, he may not like it. But I mean, we do have some flexibility, obviously, but we do have to be cautious of the existing public utilities.
In that same vein, looking at the plans, is there an opportunity to shift the parking to the west and move some of the trees or add trees on that east side of the parking lot so that the parking entrance is not as close to the residential property?
The main reason why we've shifted everything over is there are two 30-inch mature trees that we're trying to save, try to keep that existing vegetation and fit everything there. Plus, we do have to have a detention basin. If we shift everything over to the west, we now reduce the area for our stormwater management. I mean, we can do it, but again, it's going to be based on what city requires.
Okay. So I am not an engineer. In your parking design, there's those bump outs. Is that just for people backing up
On the
to
west
be
side,
able to
yes.
back that
Code
direction?
requires that if you're parking one of those last spots, that you have the ability to back up, do that wide turn, and then go out.
Okay.
We can remove those. That'll give us another 10, 15 feet to push it. But again, it goes against code. That's why we show it that way.
Thank you.
Could the parking lot be flipped from the standpoint of the access down towards the west side versus next to the neighbor's house?
Yeah. Yeah, we have the ability to relocate that access, mirror it, however.
Part of the reason was just, I wouldn't. That's
Yeah, and
possibility.
I think that would be great because then you could actually add trees within your bump out within those turn areas.
Just put the dumpster still on the east side. Yeah. One thing I do want to comment as far as his concerns with trash blowing over. I'm very aware. I don't want to cause issues. Part of the reason for the AVA fence, we'll make sure it's to the ground and it's more or less going to be you know, not sealed, but you know what I'm saying? It's not gonna be blowing out of there, and we have to have what is it called? Enclosure around that per code now anyways.
Yeah, I see that as well.
Just for the record, how many other units do you currently have?
About 150.
So you're not new to the game.
Not new. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to be very transparent with the neighbors was I showed them pictures, named the other properties that I have.
Can
Feel
you
free to
speak up
go.
just a little, Andrew?
Sorry. I wanted to be upfront with the neighbors and show them what else I've done, because if I had many examples over there they could go and see their fears are coming true, then yeah, I would expect a lot of resistance. But I had not heard anything and didn't expect much concern, given the fact that I understand that not everybody may want that next door. But I am going to do my best to make sure it's a good quality project for Findlay.
And I think for the neighbor's standpoint too, that they currently could have some sort of an office building or developed on that space. So it's not. This is maybe a little less intrusive than maybe an office would be.
Correct. The size of the lot, I looked at the size of the lot. The setbacks for a 4+ story office building, they would easily meet, so, a doctor's office or a real estate agent office may be less intense, but the office district, which it is zoned, can allow for some fairly intense things.
Yeah. Matt, when you were out, I was just expressing a concern that we've got the communication tower back in the corner there, and if you look at regulations for that, you need to be 500 feet from residential and that sort of thing. How do we mix that in with this development and not create ourselves an issue of some sort?
I would say, first of all, our communication towers and our code are probably out of sync. 20 years ago, half my classmates from planning school went into getting towers placed all across the country, and it was a fight. Now towers go up every day, lots of places. So I don't have concerns. If the tower was coming second, I would have concerns. But the tower is there, and Andrew's building with full knowledge that a tower is there. So if the tower was coming second, I would have a lot of concerns. But the tower's there, we're building this. I don't see any legal issues for the tower. I mean, there's homes close to towers.
And I assume there's minimal maintenance and activity with going on at that kind of a tower, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we get calls all the time, but every couple of years they change the radios. They change the electronical stuff at the top for the newest technology.
I believe the owner of the tower is here if you'd like to speak about the frequency of work. Yes, if you could come forward and introduce yourself, please, and just comment a little bit about any concerns with this property going next to the tower, or how frequently tower work is performed would be very helpul.
I didn't stand, and so I wasn't sworn in, but I can make.
All right, you acknowledge that you have to conform to the facts and not lie.
I'm Dave Glass, President and CEO of Findlay Publishing Company. We actually built that tower and do not own the property, but we have a perpetual easement to that property. But that's actually how we send a studio transmitter link to Hawktown, which is where our broadcast tower is for one of our FMs, and on Olive Street, where our AM. So we have no issues with line of sight. I just was a little concerned about maybe becoming non-conformant in terms of any variations as you change some zonings.
I don't have any concerns with that. I would have to look, but I don't have any concerns with that because
It would be grandfathered in, given, again, you were there
correct.
first, so we can work to provide a letter of
Let's say something
conformity.
catastrophic happened to the tower.
Sure.
You would have 2 years to reestablish it
Right.
at its current exact location.
Right.
After 2 years, you would have to meet any standards that there were.
So for the aesthetics, that's why we put the tower. We're running conduit under the road. That's how we get all of our communications up there. So yeah, we're on that tower regularly and up in that building probably 2-3 times a week. So our backup generator is there, so we're in the building frequently, but you wouldn't know it.
Yeah. I was thinking it was a cell tower, so I was misspeaking a little bit.
Yeah, we actually shoot to our, in Pandora, Hawktown, and on Olive Street, off of that tower.
Okay, thank you. I believe there was some other citizens that wanted to speak.
Yeah.
Did you have an?
Dave, Dave,
Yeah.
when you're there, maintenance and stuff, what type of things are going on? I mean, are you there for
We just lost a generator, so they were rebuilding a generator. We've got our FM translator on the top of that tower, so we climb it. But no, it's just microwave stuff, and we have the appropriate fencing around there. We had some concern with maybe some additional foot traffic around there with kids, but we have other facilities that are fairly close.
Okay.
Dan, did you want to? Yeah. Dan Stone, sorry.
We were aware of the easement. It is shown on the plans. All of our improvements are well away from the easement, so that access is going to remain. The one thing about the zoning, Matt, I know this is kind of stepping outside the box. We can, if you feel it's better, we can rezone a portion of that easement or that property and keep the easement attached, with its current zoning. I know it's, like I said, there's the easement. Whoa.
Sorry, I'm looking for the zoning map.
Yeah, so, all right, so, yeah, because it would be just, well, for all sakes and purposes, that west 20 feet. We could keep it that way if it makes sense when it comes to doing any type of repairs, improvements to the tower, but then you're leaving that small 20-foot strip. So, I mean, we have the flexibility to go outside the box if that's something the city would feel better to do, or basically, since it is grandfathered, as long as they would repair, do everything within the required time, then it would be considered still grandfathered and not have to comply with any new rules and regulations.
Yeah, my only concern is if the tower is destroyed.
Right.
And that they would reestablish it within 2 years. And even in that case, they can discuss with the city and say, hey, a new tower can't be shipped out for 26 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we would work with them to allow them to re-establish it.
Like I said, we'll be more than happy to do whatever the city and
I
the
think
owners of the tower want to do.
I think that's an extra step, and I don't really see the benefit in it.
Okay.
And I think just, my preference would be for their, protection that we'll just provide a letter of documentation stating that based off of this with the rezone that you're conforming. Here are the steps so that you guys have that documented. Okay. Sir?
Dave, do you know the height of the tower?
160.
If you could please introduce yourself and provide your address.
Tom Romick, 320 West McPherson. And can everybody hear me? Because
Yes.
you need to get this mic fixed.
Agreed.
Okay? I live in the area. All of the buildings are they're all one story. There's a few 2 stories around the corner, but so why 3 stories? It's going to make it, and it too much density. I would like you guys, there are lots in your neighborhoods. How would you like a 3-story apartment building put in your neighborhood? Because you probably live in a 2-story house, maybe a 1-story house, like all of these are. And it's too much for that area. There's a reason why it was single story or whatever, low density, why it was zoned low density. And I think that is, that's the big thing, because my neighbor covered all the other stuff. There is a petition coming your way. Apparently somebody put it in the mail. I was going to bring it to you, of the neighbors who are opposed to this. And there's I will tell you, quite a few. So that's truly my main point. I could go with a 1-story. That would be fine. It would match the rest of the neighborhood. It would be a lower density, but, 3 stories, I think is asking a little too much. I think it's just, it's a little unreasonable. Let's see if there's anything else. The other thing I'm concerned about is, you got that, I don't know, you call it a substation, that electrical substation there. I'm not sure that's the best environment to put people close to, along with that antenna that's out there. So, and my neighbor did a pretty good job of covering the rest of the stuff that I was. But there is a petition coming your way from the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Matt, did you have a comment?
Just that the property is zoned office currently. And I shared your concerns about the 3 stories when it was first brought up to me. And to me, the mitigating, it doesn't negate it, but the fact that I think if it was 3 stories and it shared the same setback, that would change the streetscape a little bit. I do think that it being placed at the back of the property does help mitigate the sense of the neighborhood and the streetscape as you travel down the roadway.
And the petition he mentioned, someone was mailing it to me, but I did not receive that for today.
Okay. Thank you. Did you want to come forward? If you could, introduce yourself and provide your address, please.
Hello, I'm Aggie Hempfling, and I live at 420 West McPherson. And in our notice that we received from the builder, you talked about adequate parking. So that's all going to be facing McPherson. And I assume that's 1 space per unit, or no, or more or less?
More than 1 space per unit. So I actually have another 20. I have another 24-unit apartment building, as I mentioned. That has 37 spaces, and we usually have at least 8 empty spaces at all times. And that has 16 one-bedrooms and 8 two-bedrooms. So this has 40 spaces. So we should have, I would think, anywhere from 8 to 12 spaces in excess at all times. So that, again, I don't want to underdo that because then I have issues with tenants. So I wanted to make sure we had adequate parking as well. And these are all 1-bedroom apartments.
Okay. And the retention pond is going to be whereabouts on the?
It'll be on the north, right there.
Here's a drawing here. North is facing out. There's McPherson. So the building's back here, the parking. And again, it will be dry. It won't be holding.
Right. I understand how that works, but. And I just want to second Tom's comments that I feel like it's too much for that space. Living across the street, I've been looking at it, thinking, how are you going to fit all this stuff in there? So I just have a real concern that it's too much for that space. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that wanted to speak for or against this item? Okay. Other questions, comments from the commission?
And at the rezoning, we don't typically talk site plan, but it's been helpful to merge the 2 conversations. Looking at this, will there be an opportunity at this edge of the parking lot to install a shrub row, like a solid shrub, like a?
We're going to be required by code because since lights can shine out that way, we would set that up with it being probably a mixture of, because we talked about having some trees, but some shrubs and stuff of that nature there to shield the car lights that would be facing north from projecting across the property onto the neighbors to the north.
And I think that'll be, if this progresses and if you progress and if the city progresses, there's a lot of question marks always in the air. But I think that'll be a really important feature. I think the the better you do that landscaping, it'll really soften the harshness of a parking lot right there, and also make a very clear separation of the parking lot and the sidewalk, so that people walking won't feel uncomfortable. It'll really soften it. And then, as you mentioned, one of the purposes that we have that in the code is to, when someone turns their lights on at night, they shine into the bushes, and that blocks the majority of the light from neighboring people. So I think if things progress and we get to the site plan, that's something that I really want to pay close attention to, and that we really get that nailed down, because I think that'll be a really good feature if this is constructed.
Other questions or comment from the commission?
Just for perspective, these two trees stay, is that correct?
Correct.
Or is it these two?
This one will be gone, but it's this one and the one behind it. So you go back to the aerial view.
Okay. I know,
God love
See how well you know Findlay.
So could you point?
So
Ups.
we're over here. Slow down. This tree, and this tree right here. Those are the two mature 30-inch trees that we're taking or keeping. Unfortunately, this one will have to go based on the detention area. This one we might be able to maintain. The building might get close to it, but these will be taken out.
Okay, so just looking at the aerial, the building will be approximately in this location.
Yeah, these two poles right here, if you had that drawing.
Yep.
So the buildings are going to be the west edge of the building is going to be in kind of line with those two poles, and then it's going to go over to about the corner of those trees and brush, and then back over.
And
So it's
then,
going to be about in this area here.
The private dog park would be in this area.
Yeah, dog park will be in this area, and then, like I said, we're going to maintain those two, and the detention facility will be in between the easement and those existing trees.
So the dry detention's right here.
Correct.
Private dog park. Building approximately.
Yep.
So yeah, those two poles are actually a good guideline to kind of gauge the size of the building. And then we have the parking lot.
Correct.
Matt, I also think with that boulevard in the front with the landscaping, that some vertical elements in there would be good. It'd give break the break the height of the building down a bit.
All right, any other discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion
I'll make the motion
to
to,
approve?
sorry, I'm used to seconding. I'll make the motion to approve, I lost my
Here you go.
notes, sorry. Application for zoning amendment, ZA 05-2023, filled by Andec LLC to rezone parcel, oh, you're gonna make me read this, 60000302210 on West McPherson Avenue from 01 office institution to M2 multifamily high density. Did we have the?
I will second that. Any other discussion?
I just want to make a note on the process. This is a recommendation to City Council. This is not the end of the process. At noon today, the City Council Planning and Zoning Committee will also take a vote and make a recommendation. If it's 2 no's, it essentially stops. If either committee says yes, then it will move on to City Council and be considered there. It'll have 3 readings and a public hearing also at City Council.
And also, this vote is only for the rezoning of the property. It doesn't include the site plan
Correct.
approval right now.
So if we fast forward and if this is approved, then we will have another meeting in which we will have their final site plan, all the bells and whistles, and then we can discuss the landscaping, the access. They will provide detention calculations that prove to the city engineer that all the water drains into catch basins and whatever, mechanism into the dry detention pond times, and then gets carried away. So that will be a lot more intense look at the site.
Thank you. So we had a motion and a second. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder?
Aye.
Mr. Klinger?
Aye.
And Mayor Murin?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And then I guess item number 9, we'll go ahead and table that because obviously we'll be in next month with the actual site plan.
Okay. So I will motion to table item 9 for the site plan review based off of the request by the applicant. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so a motion and a second has been made. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Schroeder?
Aye.
Mr. Klinger?
Aye.
Mayor Murin?
Aye.
And Mr. Martin?
Aye. Thank you again.
All right, thank you. All right, so we did have one previously tabled item that I believe we would like to discuss, or because we're planning to go over it, right?
Sure.
So that we can at least have some. So I will motion to remove tabled item number 1, application for zoning amendment ZA-02-2023, a request to repeal the existing City of Findlay zoning code and replace it with an updated version. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Klinger?
Aye.
Mayor Murin?
Aye.
Mr. Martin? Aye. And Ms. Schroeder?
Aye.
Okay, we removed that from the table, but we are going to take a quick break, and then when we reconvene, we will discuss ZA 02-2023. So you have a 2-minute break. All right, so coming back to the previously tabled, now removed from the table, item for zoning amendment ZA-02-2023, request to repeal the existing City of Findlay zoning code and replace it with an updated version. So Matt, I know we have previously discussed this. You've provided drafts of the zoning code that has been preliminarily discussed with the Planning and Zoning Committee and this group. We're now starting the formal process, which means planning, or the City Planning Commission would need to make the recommendation to Planning and Zoning Committee that it be repealed and replaced. So can you go through some of the modifications that have been made from our prior discussions?
Yep. So I sent out what I called the June draft, which had a summary of the changes and the changes also in the code.
Which is also currently on our website.
And Regional Planning's website also. And we made a social media post. We don't have as many friends and followers as I'd like, but so on page 30, Planning Commission review required. And I'm on the fence on this, and I'm leaning towards not making this change. I kind of don't want the responsibility of being viewed, of making the decision. But what we were, the discussion was, and why I made the change. A lot of times we have fairly minor changes that sometimes the code says it needs to go to Planning Commission, but common sense kind of says doesn't need to go to Planning Commission because it's 300 feet. It's a very small addition to a building, and it's not viewable from the street or the public, but it's supposed to go to Planning. So what I put a statement in that grants staff the ability to make some administrative decisions about what requires full Planning Commission review or just gets administrative approved. I'm of the mind that maybe we won't make that change. Just it's been working how it's written, so let's not change.
I would agree. When I saw that, I understand the premise of wanting to do that and making it easier for applicants. However, I think that can also put you guys kind of in a hairy position. So I think having it very cut and dry is better. And then if we identify specific situations, I would be more in favor of identifying those specific situations and updating them in the code in the future. Language.
Yep. In our current standards, I do like them. We don't ever look at the standards and be like, oh, I wish so. I think, and Jake, if you could keep a few notes. So the changes to this, I am going to roll back, and there will be no changes to that. The agricultural district, we added a statement that farm-related buildings have a height limit of 60 feet. So the discussion came up. The discussion came up, silos, barns, which are accessory farm structures. They're often taller than our traditional accessory structures, which would be 18 feet. So I liked this change, and I feel it's appropriate. So if just 18 feet was too low for the farm type activities that may occur.
So one quick question, with the 60 feet, was that kind of drawn from some existing silos, or is that kind of a standard height? And I guess in a similar vein, I want to just clarify that if an agricultural property that had existing structures annexed into the city, those structures would be grandfathered in. It would just be new structured, would have to comply with the code. I just want to put that out there so that it's very clear.
I used my experience of how tall structures are, which it's not nothing. And that 60 feet would accommodate your average barn or silo.
Okay. Can you just maybe follow up with a couple of farmers get just, I do not have as much good reference point of if that would be appropriate or if it needs to be 80 feet.
Just a quick question. Maybe we've already talked about this or it's in there somewhere. Does this only apply to properties that we're annexing, or could this potentially apply to some property that's already in the city of Findlay?
So, it will only apply to property zoned agricultural.
Okay.
With this update, there will be 0 properties zoned agricultural. So,
And no possibility that someone who already owns property within the city of Findlay is going to come and ask for a zoning change?
well, they could, but we put a minimum acreage of 5 acres.
5 acres, yeah.
And, we would have to look at the surroundings. If someone had 7 acres and it was surrounded by residential, that just exact scenario, not
concern.
looking at all the nuance, our staff recommendation would be no. If you had 100 acres on the edge of town, that's more of what we're looking at for that.
Yeah.
Looking at the city map as it sits today, I would say there are very few parcels that would be ideal candidates for this district. So, and remember, no one has a right to zoning. So the city has very good control. If someone came in for 7 acres, I'd feel very comfortable saying, no, this property does not meet the intent of what the agricultural district is.
Okay.
And then we added, and I like this, conditional use, farm operations larger than 50 animals. I'm flexible on the number of animals. It could be 100, but someone brought up a concern, and I thought it was valid. If someone was looking to open up kind of a large-scale animal operation that, and it's within the city limits and it's zoned agricultural, that the city might want to have some input on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good add. I guess I would probably drop it. I'm trying to think of. I guess I would probably drop it to 20 or 30. I guess, my only thing is like that might be, again, this is the agricultural properties, right? So you're going to have a little more space. You could have 30 chickens and it isn't intrusive.
It's 20 horses would be.
But 20 horses would be. But so I guess maybe I guess it's a conditional use. So maybe it is fine for now.
I think I would rather err on the side of caution in this case, and I think that we should lower it to 25.
I would agree.
Okay. Councilman Wood, sorry, Russell, my brain is
I promise to tell the truth. But what you're looking at here is for existing farms and to help existing farms come in. And you annex in a property and you give it the A1. Are we then going to start counting the livestock on that farm as they continue to farm it and have farmed it for ages? And I don't know that we want to be in that particular business because, as Matt said, it's not like we're going to be rezoning things to it. I would never see anything rezoned to this. In fact, you could put it in the code that says property can only be annexed in as A1. It can't be rezoned to it. In which case, what I thought our intent here was to let them farm as they have been farming, to give them that protection. But being in the city gives us the ability to better develop into it. So I kind of think we're mixing the intent of this in this conversation, the intent of what the zoning.
So I understand. I guess my converse view of it is, we annex someone that has 200 milking cows. They don't have to come to planning commission. That's an existing created use. My concern is someone has 100 acres and they sell it, or their daughter inherits it and decides, well, this 100 acres, I'd love to put, 2,000 hogs on this property. And that's where I want to have some discussion. Now, if we bring in a property that has 2,000 hogs on it, that's grandfathered and they can continue to do it. But if we bring something in and then it changes, they want to change it to a large animal operation. That's where we have some say.
Yeah. No, I think, Councilman Russell, that's a really good point. However, I wouldn't want to say that we can't rezone existing parcels, because if a property annexes into the city and it's zoned commercial, and then somebody buys it and wants it to be agricultural, I don't have, an issue with that, right? I think allowing maximum flexibility, I'm thinking of undeveloped property, right? But, okay, so maybe we need to revisit what makes sense on farm animal. Maybe revisit, think on that a little bit more, maybe talk to a couple of folks to better understand scenarios.
Do we have properties in town that would match the 5 acres and could potentially be asked to be agricultural?
Yes.
Well, just one clarification, we wouldn't necessarily ask anyone to be agricultural, right? Just because we
Correct.
make the classification, we're not going to say, hey, you qualify, do you want it?
No,
They
but
would
they
have
could
to.
apply for
They
it.
could ask us,
Right,
yes.
yeah. For instance, East Sandusky Street property, that's in excess of 5 acres. That could come into play.
They could ask, but, and I don't want to talk about specific scenarios at all, but when we're rezoning to agricultural, you have to consider, is the location appropriate for unlimited animal use? Is this location, so to me, ironically, it's a pretty intense use when it's compared, it could be an intense use. Lots of smells, lots of animals, lots of things. And so I would be very cautious recommending anything be rezoned to it, because of somewhat of the freedom that falls under farm operation.
Matt, would it make sense in the conditional use to specifically state, because we define classifications of animals, right? Like we have chickens are small, goats and sheep are one thing, and then horses, cows, pigs are large, right? Isn't there kind of a distinction?
I mean, that in the proposed farm animal ordinance.
Right.
Currently, we just, the code just talks about like wild animals.
Yeah,
like
so no, I'm
tigers and
talking
things.
about in the new proposal, because it may make more sense to say added as a conditional use, farm animal operations larger than 25 large animals. Right? So just a thought.
And I think, so someone comes in for a conditional use and they are, they are 100 acres, I think in many times this could be a very easy conditional use to grant. It just, depending on the scale and in its location. That's why the conditions of the request dictate, and I think, someone brought this up and I thought it was a very good point. It changes hands and all of a sudden we have 1,000 steers on the edge of town, and it's kind of not what we anticipated. What I think, adding a statement about existing operation, just reinforcing that, existing animal operations, animal operations existing before the adoption of this ordinance are grandfathered, just to reassure, but then stating something like a significant increase in animals may be subject to the conditional use. So if you have 300, excuse me. To Grant's point, we're not interested in going out and counting sheep, 200 sheep, well, now you have 210, but I do want some protection from someone changing from a cornfield to 2,000 pigs.
Other items here?
Just, we have when you have residential houses in a row and you have one missing, we have an average front yard setback so that we maintain the character of the neighborhood. So everyone's set back 10 feet. Well, your new house should be 10 feet rather than 25 feet prescribed. And there was just a confusing statement about infill lot. The infill created a confusing statement. So we removed that. So that was a pretty small change. It doesn't change. We were just concerned that the inclusion of the word infill made it mean something else than what we intended. We added electric charging stations. So originally, I proposed that they just be added to C2. But upon further consideration, O1, C1, C3, M1, M2, electric charging stations are permitted as a conditional use. So if, who knows where electric vehicles will go in the future, but let's say you have a doctor's office and one of the things you have are 4 charging stations. So while you're getting your teeth cleaned, you can plug in, or any of these downtown, different downtown areas, Marathon may want to install them, etc. So we added them as a conditional use. I like adding them as a conditional use because this board gets to review each installation rather than just a permitted. The downtown, the design review board maintenance requirements. So we have maintenance requirements in the downtown design review district, and we have what I would call a goofy process, and we're trying to fix that a little bit. So Jacob has peeling paint on his commercial business. I receive a complaint, and then I forward the complaint to the board, and the board votes if it's a valid complaint. And what it prescribes us to do is to do all that before talking with Jacob. So the board meets, talks about Jacob's property, and decides, yes, it's a valid complaint. Then the complaint truly starts moving forward. And so what the design review board asked me to change is that I receive a complaint, I look at Jacob's building, say, yes, the paint is peeling, this is a valid complaint, and then it goes to the board, who then prescribes remedies. Now, the remedy could be, they could prescribe no remedy, or the building has to be repainted. But what they wanted to avoid was this weird, we receive a complaint, it goes to the board, and the board votes that, yes, it's a valid complaint, or no, it's a valid complaint. They wanted me or the staff, or whoever the staff is for that, to decide if it's a valid complaint. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We kind of added, it was an added step that didn't seem, it's an added step that, none of the rest of the zoning code has. So,
So what's the clunky step removed?
the clunky step will.
Sorry, I forget I talk loud enough, but what's the clunky step removed?
So the intent was that we didn't want to have complaints come in and have to address them if they weren't necessarily like valid. People complaining about chip paint can be somewhat subjective, I think.
And you
Yeah.
think, and I guess I understand that.
The clunky step is going to the board, deciding their only, when it goes to the board, their only action on that is to vote if it's a valid complaint or not. Then there's a second meeting to prescribe potential remedies.
And to use Jacob as an example, he, as the potential person with the potential problem, is not included until the board designates it actionable.
Yeah, now, we've only had 4 or 5 complaints and actions in the last 5 or 6 years, but we have since, we invite them to let them know that it's being considered.
Okay, I just, if I was Jacob, I would want to know that there was a problem before it had to be ran in front of a committee, because I, as a good neighbor, might just remedy it without making a big production.
Yeah.
So I was missing that part of the conversation. So, okay.
Yeah, it's just this weird meeting where, yes, yes, this is valid.
Okay.
Next item.
Thanks.
Dan DeArmond, in his excellent knowledge of trash, very helpful. He described to me, we have transfer stations in the I-1 district, and he's inspected hundreds of transfer stations in his career, and he explained how big and messy and smelly and, in general, intense of a use they can be. So we moved transfer station and recycling center from a permitted use to a conditional use. Now, my initial thought was moving them to the I-2 district, but that's our most intense district. But what I liked putting it as a conditional use, because if it's a recycling center and it's, the size of Litter Landing, I mean, that's not a catastrophe waiting to happen. We get to review it. But if it's a 100-acre recycling facility, we're going to have a lot of questions. So that was just, Dan pinpointed some potential uses that could be very intense. So we moved them from permitted to conditional so that the board can make decisions about the proper intensity in those things. This is another good catch that I liked. So our I-3 district did a traditional pyramid. So anything in I-2 and I-1 is permitted. And I think that would be a detriment to the I-3 district, because the first time someone requested I-3, we would look at I-2 and say, gosh, all these super intense things are also. So what we did is said the uses in I-1, which is light industrial, which is 99%, the only thing that's I-2 in the city of Findlay is Cooper Tire, the Cooper Tire factory. Everything else is I-1. So we removed, so in I-3, you have the uses listed in I-3 and the uses listed in I-1. And we're not including the uses in I-2. Because to me, that opens up a real large, smelting, mining, horrible, big smelly giant things. And I think if we're trying to utilize the I-3 district, I would be concerned about opening that Pandora's box of all the I-2 uses also. I think. Oh, so bed and breakfast, short-term rental. I think in these cases, I just like to go to, we can actually look at it. It's something fresh on our minds here. Bed and breakfast means any dwelling which may or may not be owner occupied, in which 1, contains rooms furnished for the purposes of providing lodging to transient guests, is kept, used, maintained, advertised, or held out to the public as a place where sleeping accommodations are available for pay or compensation by transient guests, has no more than 5 bedrooms furnished for accommodation of such guests, is rented for a period of less than 28 days. This is a definition that I took from another community. It changed a few words, but so this incorporates the traditional bed and breakfast and an Airbnb, an air bed breakfast. And then we defined short-term rental. And then, which short-term rental is defined as renting it to one person less than 28 days. So a long-term rental would be, I rent it for 30 days, or 6 months, or a year, like a traditional duplex. Short-term would be defined as me renting it for 28 days or less.
I like those numbers. Can you just, where'd we come up with those?
From the other community.
Okay.
Now, I looked at several other communities. It ranged from 31 days to 28 days. But there was no one that was like 90 days.
Okay.
You know, most communities range between 28 and 30.
What would be the difference then between the long-term rental and the short-term rental from the standpoint of zoning? In other words, the short-term would be like the Airbnb.
So, I mean, long-term would be
Like
a
90 days.
duplex.
Yeah, okay.
You know, someone could argue, well, you know, you could have a duplex and, well, it's not a duplex because I only rent it for 5 days. You know, just clearing up some of those little games that can occur with how long it's being rented for. The other thing that I would like to do, I believe it's, and I do tie back. Let me. Yeah. So I refer to short-term residential rental rather than calling it the brand name Airbnb, because there's Verbo, there's probably 3 others being created as we speak. Short-term residential rental, please see bed and breakfast. So this is just trying to tie together that the short-term rentals fall under the definition of bed and breakfast, and those are the standards. Now, what I did not, you know, I made these changes to tie bed and breakfast to short-term rentals. What I didn't do, and we may want to do in the future, is take a hard look at, is this something we want to regulate further? You know, currently they're permitted in the R2 and R3 residential districts. They're not listed as a conditional use in R1 district. But I think there is a solid case to have a discussion about the prevalence and are there changes that we want to make. We want to make them more widely available. That's not my gut feeling. My gut feeling is we want to have a little more control of where and how often these things can occur. But I didn't want to throw those changes into this discussion at this late moment. So those are the changes. I also added all the photos, all the pictures that were in the other code. So the other code had some exhibits like the parking that we discussed today. There's an exhibit that I just hadn't moved the pictures into this version. This version has all the pictures. We did remove the one-page summaries. And you know, it's a nice tool, but it's also a tool, you know, whenever you list a standard 2 or 3 times in a book and you change it one place and you forget to change it in the other place, when you repetitively repeat standards, there's a danger that you then create conflicting statements. And then these were exhibits that were in the code for a long time, and they're not in our current one. They were in the code back in the before we, and then how do you define which one's the front yard, the rear yard? So those are the changes that have been made since the last draft. And made these changes about 3 weeks ago, I think. And we put those up on the website right away. And emailed them out.
Are you receiving any feedback on this? Have you?
Have not.
Okay.
Okay, so I would motion that we table this again, and that we plan to address it at our next meeting with kind of the final form that we would want it in, removing the page 30 Planning Commission staff review, removing that language. Like you to reach out to some farm operations just to get a better sense on that height.
Yep.
As well as language around the conditional use of larger farm operations, so that we can just discuss that and kind of nail that down, and then consult and determine if we just need to make one broad statement about existing uses and operations being grandfathered in, or if we need to specifically list that in agriculture. Otherwise, all of the items seem to make sense and be consistent with our prior discussions. So I will make that in a form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So that motion is to table and to recommend staff to make those adjustments. Any other questions? All right.
My goal is to have the final version to you vacation 30th, Friday the 30th. I'll try to email out the perfect version of it.
Perfect. All right. With that, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mayor Marin.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
And Mr. Klinger.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you. With that, there are no other items on our agenda. This meeting of the City Planning Commission is adjourned.
Next board, please.
Yeah. Have 5 minutes and then Planning and Zoning Committee will begin.
Hey,
You're never going to find that sweet spot, but that's what I found quickly. I'm like, so the silos are the ones you look way up, it's tall cylinders, and the crane bins are a little shorter. And yes,